This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and this is the MSI Stealth Pro GS63VR. It seems like the ghost name, which would be the name that MSI usually uses for the 15.6-inch models, gone. They're going to be 15 and 17-inch stealths. This has the new NVIDIA GTX 1060. The mobile version, obviously, there's not a desktop graphics card here, but they're not putting the M at the end of the name anymore. And all you need to know is on this little sticker. See what this says right here? 40% performance improvement. It's true. It's not a lie for a change. You know, companies are always saying, oh, our new CPU, our new graphics stuff is 40% faster. And you're thinking, well, maybe on planet Zircon at 0 weight with special high density atmosphere that's true. In this case, it really is. It's wonderful. You know, I look forward to this. I've been reviewing these things for like 15 years, and rarely do we see a generational leap like that. It's also kind of infuriating because this skinny little 3.96-pound laptop here with the quad-core CPU, it's the usual very impressive MSI engineering, is faster than my last year's this monster, this GT72 Dominator Pro G-Sync right here, this giant fat thing here. Okay, it plays games not as fast as our skinny new friend down here. It's really amazing. It doesn't benchmark as fast. This has the 980M, the top of the top for the last generation. This, you know, the 960 used to mean, well, it was for the kind of gamer crowd that couldn't afford a better GPU like a 970 or a 980 kind of in the old days. It was in the XPS 15, and that's because it was kind of a multimedia pro apps laptop that made concessions. Now the 1060 isn't that kind of, well, we're just at the, you know, the entry level of the higher end GTX NVIDIA GeForce cards. It is a powerful, powerful graphics card. There is a 1070, there is a 1080. I don't think we're going to see the 1080 in a lot of laptops, except for the really expensive ones that had 64 gigs of RAM and everything else. I think the 970 is going to be the top, even for a lot of 17-inch gaming laptops. So far, MSI is usually first out of the gate with these things, so we've seen a few from ASUS, a bunch from MSI, just recently released. Alienware, you know, sometime before the second coming, they'll come out with it. But so far from what I've seen on the market, there probably won't be a lot of 1080s. You don't need a 1080. This thing kicks butt with the 1060. A 1070 would be serious future-proofing. We're going to look at it now. As you've no doubt guessed, we have the exotic PC version of this, and they've put their decal on the lid. Over here, my big GT72 Dominator, that shows you what the standard lid finish is like. It's a brushed black aluminum finish. You can also see the insane difference in size. The GT72 Dominator is a full-size desktop gaming rig versus the Stealth Pro here, which is really a thin and light kind of thing that you could actually carry around easily enough. It's a pretty impressive difference in size. Exotic PC, by the way, they sell several different gaming laptop brands, and they can customize for you if you're the kind of person who wants to get upgrades but you don't want to have to open it up yourself. And they also have specials, bundled Bluetooth gaming headsets, cool stuff like that. We've reviewed several models supplied by them, and they're good stuff. But back to the Stealth Pro GS63VR. This has NVIDIA 1060, this GeForce GTX graphics. That's the only graphics card available. I don't think that they can get the 1070 in here. Honestly, the heat dissipation and the power would be a problem for that. You still get Intel 6th generation Skylake CPUs. That hasn't changed from the previous model because that's still the latest available from Intel. So you get the Core i7-6700HQ quad-core CPU, 45 watt, powerful. As powerful as the CPU in a desktop gaming replacement kind of unit. The bottom is covered in faux suede. They cover the whole bottom here now. It used to just be the back section, and it looks better actually covering the entire bottom. And they do that to help you not get burnt when you're gaming. This gets hot. Yes, it does. Not as hot as the previous generation, though, which could reach about 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Yowza. This one about 125 degrees Fahrenheit when playing intensive games like Fallout 4. So it's still a toasty one. You're not going to put this directly on your legs, but that faux suede does help. The laptop has a lot of ports, including Ethernet, Bigfoot Killer E2400 Ethernet. So that's good stuff right there. Plus you get killer wireless N1535 Wi-Fi AC. That's always a good wireless adapter, folks. The performance on that, the throughput, the range are tops. You get an RGB backlit keyboard, programmable, and this continues to be the 15.6-inch MSIs are always my favorite in terms of key travel tactile feel relative to the size of the machine. It feels good. It's also one of the few 15-inchers to have a number pad. That's one of the reasons why this is wider across too, because it has to make room for that number pad, and it also gives them well, more space for internal components. So they probably figured, hey, here's a way to get that all working together nicely. The trackpad, I know, right? You're just waiting to hear me say the trackpad sucks, because I always say that about MSI. It doesn't. Yay, they finally fixed it. I wouldn't call this awesome sauce. No, but it's pretty usable, and nothing dire happens when I want to move things around the file system anymore. It doesn't mysteriously stop tracking my finger movements or clicks or anything like that. It's pretty good, and it has discrete clickers that are not too stiff. Sometimes MSI goes for this too stiff thing where you just about dislocate your thumb. Not going to happen here. Much improvement. Back to those ports. There's a lot of ports on something this thin and light. You can see we have USB 3.0 here. We have Thunderbolt 3 / USB-C 3.1. So you get one of those ports, real Thunderbolt 3 there. HDMI mini display port, and that's your power connector over there. One thing I want to mention is, see that power button? That's a little thing right there towards the left front. What a stupid place to put it. They do this on convertible laptops because you might need to turn it on and off when it's flipped into tablet mode. But for a regular laptop, I can tell you every time one of us picked it up and moved it around, we accidentally hit that power button. I don't know why they took it off of the keyboard deck. And even more ports here, 3 more USB 3.0 ports. You got your SD card slot, there's that Ethernet port, and we have separate mic and headphone jacks. And as always, MSI's into good quality audio. So we have one ESS Sabre Hi-Fi DAC inside, and you got SPDIF digital output as well. There are also 4 Dyna audio speakers built in here. Don't get excited when you hear that. Sometimes MSI does a good job with audio, especially their Dyna audio branding, though it's still using that Nahimic audio sound software. It's pretty thin and tinny sounding. This is not awesome audio here. It's okay, and you can hear it over the fans, which, given how loud the fans can get, says something, but it's not super duper great audio. Let's talk about design and build quality a bit. First off, you don't see gaming laptops that can lay flat back. Usually it's convertibles only, occasionally some Lenovo ThinkPads designed towards sharing business presentations. So this is what it is. You can do it if you want to do it. And build quality with MSI, it's always kind of a mixed bag, their aesthetics and their build quality. Not much has changed from the previous generation of the Ghost Pro and the Stealth Pro. You get your brushed black aluminum keyboard deck and lid. The bottom is plastic. The bottom should be a plastic in this case, because something that is this thin and has these kind of powerful internals gets hot on the bottom. Believe me, metal would actually really hurt, even with that nice faux suede on the bottom. So I'm okay with that, and I leave the aesthetics up to you. It doesn't creak. The keyboard deck is actually very nice and firm here. You know, if you really romp on it, you'll get a slight bit of movement, but it's rigid and it's decently built in the ways that counts. But there's always one thing that MSI does that just irks me. It's their lid on the display area. So here it is. You see my fingernail actually fits in here. And this happens with a lot of MSI laptops. Now, I've owned some and they don't fall apart or anything like that. It's just disconcerting. And you would think, oh, how would I even notice that? Because we tend to push and pull over here when we open and close a laptop, and you'll notice it starts to separate. It's just the way they design it. That's just a little cheeseball. The lid has, if you push on it, you can get some light pooling because they make it so thin and light. I mean, this is kind of a specialized design, but it's pretty rigid in terms of torsioning, so no real complaints there. And on the front edge, we have a whole lot of indicator lights over here for those of you who like to have status about everything that's going on with your power, your SSD, all of that sort of thing. And the keyboard is also, well, this is normal for MSI. They put the Windows key over here instead, which is kind of weird. They put the delete key over here. That's also kind of weird. Otherwise, it's perfectly good. Again, SteelSeries, programmable, RGB, backlit. Nice key travel on this. It's a lot of key travel for a thin laptop. Not clackety sounding, nice damping, all that sort of thing. So it's all good. Just, you know, with MSIs, they always do that kind of weirdness. And your brightness is over here and your volume is over here, operated by the FN key. They don't put them up on the top multimedia row like most laptop manufacturers do. The laptop's available with your choice of a full HD 1920 by 1080 matte IPS display or R4K option, so 3840 by 2160, also matte, also non-touch. If you want touch, well, this is not the laptop for you. Now, this is a photo that I actually took, and it looks pretty good here, but I can see the weak contrast here a bit. As you look towards the trees heading towards the distance there, they kind of get a little bit milkier looking than they should. And let's talk about the good stuff first before we get there. 281 nits of measured brightness with our Spider 4 Pro colorimeter. That's pretty good. I'm sure they're probably claiming around 300 or so. And given the fact that you're not going to get any glare on this matte display, that's perfectly adequate. Gamma is 2.3, a little higher than the 2.2 that should be perfect. And a lot of laptops actually do hit that, but it's not the end of the world. The white point is 7,000 degrees Kelvin. That's actually quite good. Now, 65 to 6600 are considered ideal, but just about no laptop ever reaches that. They're always too high. The higher the numbers, the more blue and cool white. It calibrates up pretty nicely. This is the calibrated look right here on the display. Color gamut's also good too. 97% of sRGB, 72% of Adobe RGB. So for those of you who want to actually use this for some professional photo and video editing, it's got the required pretty much full sRGB coverage. Now, the black point is not terribly fantastic on this, and the result is a contrast ratio of 390 to 1. Gaming laptops, contrast is really important. I mean, I'd like to see that something closer to 1,000 to 1, honestly, even 500 to 1. On a glossy display, you can get away with it so much, but not on a matte display. You do a lot of literally dungeon crawling here, and everything is going to look like the same kind of murky black. And I'm going to show you Far Cry Primal, where your home starting village is actually in a cave, and I'll be darned if you can find your way out of the cave even. So inside you have, like I said, the same old Intel Core i7-6700HQ. That's Skylake 6th generation. That's just fine. There's nothing newer available from Intel right now. That's a powerful 45-watt CPU. The same thing you'll find in mobile workstations, in bigger gaming laptops. It's powerful, folks. And we have the NVIDIA GTX 1060 card. Now, they don't put the M at the end anymore for some reason, NVIDIA, but obviously it's the mobile card. This is not a giant desktop graphics card stuffed in here. But even for a mobile edition of a card, it is fantastically freaking fast. You get 6 gigs of DDR4 RAM here, which is sufficient for most games, even probably playing in 4K, unless you're talking about GTA 5, which is kind of a VRAM hog. So that's Pascal, for those of you who follow that. And this has NVIDIA Optimus. There's no hardware switch to switch in between your dedicated and your integrated Intel HD 530 graphics. It does it on the fly. If you're running a game, it senses that. It switches to dedicated graphics. If you're doing Photoshop or Premiere Pro, like, you get the idea. It's going to switch. You can override that if you need to. Now, the stock machine, the base machine, should have a 256 gig PCIe SSD and a 1 terabyte 5400 RPM hard drive. Now, $17.99 is the base model with the 1080p display, and 4K only adds $200. So it's, for those of you who really want the 4K, there you have it. 16 gigs of RAM is what you get. You can go up to 32 gigs. This has 2 RAM slots. I'll show you the internals in a minute, but this is ever the same story with the Ghost and Stealth lines for MSI, where they've crammed things in here so tightly. And really, it's a marvel of engineering here. This is not to ding them, but when you take off the bottom cover, you'll see the battery, the wireless card, and the 2.5-inch hard drive bay, which you could put a 2.5-inch SSD drive in if you wanted to. But you have to unscrew and remove the motherboard, flip it over to the other side to actually access those RAM slots. So, you know, if you want to have exotic PC do it for you, if you decide you do want more RAM. Not a bad idea. This uses DDR4 2400 megahertz RAM, by the way. And the chipset is the Intel HM170. Now, that NVIDIA 1060 is actually a pretty darned efficient graphics module. Here's a charger. It's 180 watt, which should be sufficient to power it. The thermals on this have been so far, like I said, much improved from previous generations, and the power consumption is good too. So far, this has not consumed more power than that power brick can provide, so pretty efficient stuff there. The Ghost and the Stealth have never been fantastic long battery life machines. A gaming laptop this thin and light, you know, not much room for a big battery in here. 65 watt-hour battery. To give you an idea, a usual dual-core Ultrabook would have around 45 watt-hour battery, and some of the bigger ones have like 88 to 96 watt-hour batteries. So we're sitting on the low side here. As a result, 3.5, 4 hours maybe of productivity use. Gaming a lot less. An hour and a half maybe. about that. It's a 3-cell battery, and as you saw from the internals, it's nominally sealed inside. If you remove the Phillips head screws on the bottom, you can access it should you need to service it. So just how good are the graphics on this? Well, this is Fallout 4, and we're playing at 4K resolution and high settings. We have fraps running in the upper left-hand corner. It's pretty teeny, but you can see we're going between 30 and 35. Let's go into an interior area right here. Go into the restaurant. And, you know, we're still doing in the low 30s. So you probably want a little higher. If you're going to play at 4K resolution, then I suggest dropping, obviously, down to medium. That'll get you up into the mid 40s for resolution. Or drop down to 1080p. And we'll try this in 1080 so you can see it next to after this mean dog attacks me. And now we've dropped it down to 1080p, but ultra for the settings. Which, let me make a point here. Does this look a whole lot different than high did at 4K to you? No. And does 4K at 15.6 inches make a whole lot of sense? Honestly, I really can't see a whole lot of difference. So it makes more sense for those of you who actually want to plug this into an external monitor a lot of the time when you're playing the game. Otherwise, well, it's a consolation for those of us who still have, say, a 970 or a 980M machine. If you're playing at 1080p resolution, on high just fine, it's going to visually look pretty darn good already. But here we are still capped at, synced at full 60 frames per second. And let's see if that dog sneaks up on me again. My nice shotgun. So there you have it. So 1080p Ultra, and that's just with a 1060M. I can't wait to show you guys and gals the 1080 that we have coming in for review. So here we are in Far Cry Primal now, and you can see the frame rate in the upper left-hand corner, 57, 58, 60, going up even higher. Now, even if you're fighting, maybe it's because cavemen in clubs, you know, it doesn't stress the GPU too much. It's not really going to be much different here, and it looks stunning. Again, Ultra, 1080p. If you want to play at 4K, you're going to see frame rates around 35 or so, which I consider to be a little too low to play this comfortably. But that said, that this is doing about 10 frames per second better than my GT72 Dominator Pro with the 980M, which is a top-of-the-line last generation card. It's pretty darn amazing. And the fan noise isn't that bad either, because we've got 3 fans in here, what they call their Trinity system. And I've just taken myself back to the home cave here just so you get an idea of it. It's pretty darn hard to see much of anything, and then the distance there just kind of whites out the distant view. This is where the contrast ratio becomes annoying, and we are running at maximum brightness right now. By the way, this is also VR ready for those of you who have a Vive or Oculus Rift. You know, the high-end previous generation mobile card, it was just barely there, but this one can handle it easily enough. So it's good stuff. And now that I've talked about the performance, shown you some games, we'll show you the benchmark slide so you can see a comparison of how this does with some last generation machines. So there it is, the MSI Stealth Pro GS63VR VR capable, obviously 4K capable. It does depend on the game you're playing with the 1060. If you're really into that 4K gaming, probably because you have an external monitor, you might want the 1070 to really get the higher frame rates. But overall, this thing is awesome, okay? Now, of course, ASUS is going to have awesomeness out there too, and other manufacturers. What MSI does with their Stealth line, and previously with the Ghost line, is squeezes it into a crazy thin laptop. So you've got something that's wildly portable, and it's not as hot as it used to be too, which is a good thing. And you get the number pad on the keyboard. So it has a lot of special sauce for those of you who are looking for the ultimate in portability. Battery life, yeah, not so much. If you're going to go for a really powerful gaming and a really thin chassis, it's pretty hard to get a lot of battery life out of it. But it can go 4 hours if you're using integrated graphics at best. So it's like most gaming laptops. We'll wait to see what Razer Blade does probably in 2017. They're usually about the best at getting some battery life out of something that's thin and light. But It's darn good, folks. It's darn fast. If you've been waiting a while to get yourself a gaming laptop, this is definitely the generation of GPU to do it, and this is the bee's knees if you want it thin and light. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to visit our website for the full written review and all those benchmarks right there, easy to see. And subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos.